Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today we're here to talk about 1% extras. Michael, your topic?
Dallas, I just wanted to kick off this morning with a nice, easy one.
I think I need an easy one. I've just been having sound engineering issues and there's steam coming out of my ears right now. So a nice, easy one might get me back into a nice recording mood.
So what I wanted to look at is not overcomplicate things and work out exactly how much you need to retire. I just wanted to look at the difference that 2 times 1% extras would make, and that extra 1%, or the 1%ers that I'm talking about here, is what if I actually got two things? What if I adjusted my investment strategy in my retirement savings so that I got an extra 1% rate of return?
Yep.
Now, we're not in control of rates of return, of course.
No, but we are in control of what asset classes you invest into, which is, the underlying asset class that you invest into is going to be the biggest driver of your investment returns. So we might not necessarily be able to control exactly what those returns are, but to some degree we are able to control what they are going to be relative to someone else over the same sort of time frame.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can use historical perspective. There's a big caveat to say that historical returns are not indicative of future performance, and that's true. However, it's the only thing that we have. I mean, if you look at historical performance, and you look at the historical performance of the largest 500 companies in America versus the average term deposit rates, it gives you a really reasonable guide as to what you could expect over any period of time, and you'll see that there's a big difference between those two.
And I think sorry, Michael, I'm sort of hijacking your podcast, but I was just thinking the point with this is you'll notice that we're only looking for a 1% extra return here. I think this is the key for a lot of this when you're looking at investment returns, is that if ever someone's telling you, hey, we're going to get you a 20% return year on year guaranteed, or we're going to do we're going to get you a 15% return every year, that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about if on average over the next 10 years you were going to get a 7% return, we're just talking about tweaking that up to 8%. We're not saying go from 7 to 17, because if you think you can get guaranteed 17% returns over the next 10 years, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Good point. So that's all tongue-in-cheek aside, that was a good point, because it's just that extra 1% rate of return. So the other 1% that we're looking at is that if you just took your income, your household income before tax, and you simply popped in 1% extra into your superannuation fund every year. So effectively, let's say that's taking your employer contributions up from 10 to 11%. I have assumed the 1% is a net contribution. So, and we're not even going to look at what's tax deductible and not tax deductible. We've done all of that before. So
I think the point of the beauty of this is it's 1%. So
it's 1%.
It's not. We're not talking about trying to save $30,000 a year after tax in this case. It's just literally a 1%er.
So what I've assumed is that it could be a single person, or it could be a couple, but their age or ages of 50. They have $150,000 household income before tax. I've assumed 10% employer super guarantee going in on that $150,000 of household before tax income. I've assumed that these people have a combined superannuation balance of $500,000 right now. And the control group, the first group that I'm going to look at, have they achieve a 7% net rate of return on their retirement savings, or their superannuation in this case we're going to use as a proxy for their entire retirement savings. and they have no voluntary super contributions.
Yep.
So the second group, the 1% extra group, it's a couple in this case, let's assume, they have, instead of getting a 7% net rate of return on their superannuation balance each and every year, they get an 8% net rate of return, so extra 1%.
Yep.
In addition to that, they pop in 1% of their salary,
Combined income. Yep.
which is $1,500. Their combined income is $150,000. They pop in $1,500
Yep.
per year. To keep that simple, I haven't even indexed that. I've just said that's just $1,500 a year, and the time frame that we're looking at is 15 years, from 50 to age 65.
Mm-hmm.
So the results, the 1% extra group, they actually retire with an extra $273,000 of superannuation balance.
I always find when we do these numbers as a financial advisor, you're looking at it all the time, but you would have done the same thing. You do these numbers, and then you go back and check your spreadsheet because you go,
checked it,
that can't
double
be right.
checked it.
You go, it's a 1% extra return and a 1% extra contribution. It can't make almost $300,000 worth of difference over 15 years. But that's the whole beauty of compounding. That's the whole beauty of you'll notice that a 15-year time frame is a bit of the key here, is that it makes a huge difference over 15 years. It's almost hard to comprehend a lot of the time when we're looking at longer time frames, and the compounding effect of a couple of things in conjunction is the other thing that jumps out at me there, is that each one of these two things would have make a difference, but the combination of the two over a longer time period can make a much bigger difference than what we intuitively would think.
It does, and I think the numbers are realistic. I mean, if we look at the combined superannuation balance of a couple coming to see us at ages 50, it's around about the $500,000 usually. So, the extra 1% rate of return on that $500,000 over 15 years makes a big difference. I took the average superannuation balance down to $100,000 just to test it.
Yeah.
And the extra 1% rate of return on $100,000 over 15 years only makes a $63,000 difference. So it's a combination of an extra 1%. The compounding effect of that is huge, Dallas, isn't it? We see that. That's that extra 1% rate of return, the hypothetical extra 1% rate of return on a reasonable sized balance, in this case, in this example, $500,000 over a reasonable time frame of 15 years. And I mean, combined with the extra 1% of income being popped in as well.
I think that's, to me,
makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's why these sorts of things are. Maybe they're only interesting to us. We probably get terrible feedback on this podcast. We've gone, this isn't interesting as you guys think. But I think that what's dangerous sometimes is that you have people people thinking that I need to make huge whole scale changes, otherwise there's no point.
Yes.
And what you find is that if you think you have to make huge changes, you're not going to do anything. So it's almost easy to take the pressure off here by saying, look, if you're 50, you got $500,000 in super. Sure, you can max out your concessional contributions every year. You can make huge changes to your lifestyle. And if you can't do that, or if you don't feel like that's what you want to focus on, no one's saying you have to do those things. You can just make a little tweak to your lifestyle over a longer time frame. Like you say, an extra 1%, and these are all very achievable. Like no one. Like I said, it's not taking you from a 7% rate of return to a 17%. It's just getting that asset allocation of your super fund right, tweaking that slightly, looking at the savings of $1,500 a year over every fortnight is next to nothing. Like you wouldn't notice it, sort of thing. The difference of that can be huge, and I think that's really what's hard for people to get their head around. And I think it probably causes people to do the ostrich thing of the head in the sand, is you kind of go, I can't make whole scale change. I don't have a spare $30,000 a year. Therefore, I feel like I'm not going to be able to make any difference to my retirement outcomes, so I'll do nothing. Yep. And I think that's, to me, that the takeaway from this is that as long as if you do everything that you can, you'll be amazed at the difference that makes over 15 years.
That's a great point. That's the point I wanted to get across. Because at ages 50, it's very likely that your youngest is still in grade 10 or 11 or 12, and you have the eldest still at university. Now, in 5 years' time, you're in a significantly different situation where your youngest, hopefully, is graduated from university and is going to work for one of the big four consulting firms.
I like the way you've just tried to come up with the career path that's got the least likelihood of a backward step. They're off your hands and they're never coming back. They're never coming back to live with you, leech off you anymore.
So you're in a remarkably different position 5 years time. There is a danger though in waiting for that 5 years to elapse before you start. So again, what I wanted to look at, I actually wanted to look at changes that people could implement overnight. And look, 1% of your salary we know is all around us. And we've done other podcasts where you just go through your recent credit card expenses and then start culling some of the things that you don't get value out of anymore. And you'll find 1% of your salary really, really quick smart. And the other thing to do, and this is regardless of age, you could be, you don't have to be 50, you could be 45 listening to this. It makes a bigger difference. You could be 55, you could be 60. Is really getting interested in that and in burrowing down on what the investment strategy of your superannuation is. And we're not saying go gung-ho into high growth and more volatility, more volatile assets. But we're saying actually we're about to do another podcast soon where we look at the four main inputs that you can use to
control your retirement.
To control your retirement. Two of them you can't control. Two of them you have some sort of control, which is your disposable income that you can put towards your retirement savings and the investment strategy, and therefore the likely rate of return that you can
over the long term.
Get out of your superannuation funds investment strategy. So it's one of those things you can become interested overnight.
Yes, well, because
in those things,
if you can become interested when you know that there's I guess that's, to me, the two takeaways, or the way that I'd think of it is, human nature is that we only get interested in things where we see a benefit to ourselves. You know what I mean? If we're conceptually talking about, you should probably take, and people say this to us all the time, they go, yeah, I know, I should probably pay more attention to my super. But in the back of their mind, they're going, I'm 50, I can't really, I've only got 500,000 in super, we've still got kids at home. We can't really afford to really get cracking on a plan now. So I'll just sort of sit on and won't do anything. So I think that's one of the takeaways for me, is that the quicker you get started, the more the compounding effect of even just those minor changes, even just the things that you can do overnight, make a huge difference. The second part of it that I guess I've read a fair bit and thought a fair bit about how habits are formed and how good and bad habits are formed and maintained over the long term. And one of the big things they talk about is in any habit pattern is you start with the smallest possible step that you can stick to. And so people will talk about this with fitness, where if you start with something comically small, you get started on that path. So if you want to run a marathon and you're 40 kilos overweight and struggle to get off the couch, you don't go to, I'm going to sign up for a marathon. What you do is you go, okay, well, every day I'm going to put on my shoes. I'm just going to put on my exercise shoes and I'm going to walk as far as I want and then stop. I'm going to give myself complete permission. So you might put on your exercise shoes and sit on the couch and watch TV, and that's okay. And that's this school of thought is that if you make it so that it's impossible to fail, then you go, right, well, the first day you might just put your shoes on, lace your shoes up and go, all right, I'm just going to sit here and watch daytime TV and not actually get off the couch. But then what you'll find is you'll do that the next, you just get in the habit of you put your shoes on. The next day you might go, I'll just get up and go for a walk outside and check the mail. And then what happens is that you've created a habit that's started by that thing. And that's, I think, to me, that the compounding effect of starting those contributions small is similar to that, where people would look at this and go, well, what's the point of putting $1,500 a year into super? It makes no difference. So the two parts that I would say are that it does make a difference over the long term. And secondly, it's not actually about putting $1,500 a year in for the next 15 years. It's about if you get started on that path, if you get into the habit of doing that, if you put $1,500 in for this year and then you get a pay rise, it's much easier to tweak that habit that's already in place where you go, I am someone who puts extra money into super. That's a part of my financial plan. That's what I do. You can dial that $1,500 up much easier, and it's sort of a less of a shock to the system compared to you do nothing and then you get to 58 and go, geez, I've only got 7 years to go. I'm going to have to put 30 grand a year into super. That's going to be really painful. It's almost like, it's a similar sort of analogy, I would say, where if you start that early, even with a comically small amount of money, it's very easy to dial that up. And we've seen that before with clients where you get started. People are often doing things 5 years after becoming a client where they couldn't have fathomed, they couldn't have even got their head around their ability to save that much money or to make those things happen. And it's just every 6 months you're tweaking things. After 5 years, they're a new person, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of it's psychological, as you pointed to. And it's about starting with what you can start with, bedding that down, and then going again and tweaking it as your situation changes. And far too often, I mean, we have case studies in our financial planning. The plethora of courses that we've had to do over the years, and the case study will be presented really, really static. These people have come to you with
and they are
this financial position.
This is how they
this
view
is their
things.
income. This is their disposable income, and all these types of things. Now, what we know is that hardly ever happens. I mean, a 50-year-old couple will come to us, and like I said before, the youngest is 16 and the eldest is 22 and still at uni. A year later, their expenses change because the eldest graduates and gets a job. Then the youngest moves up into grade 12, and then the youngest moves into university, and their expenses change again. So and then as we said, 5 years into that overall plan, when they're 55, the youngest is potentially off their hands fully, and their expenses change again, and they've been promoted.
And
so
it's a very different dynamic.
It's a dynamic, it's a dynamic situation all the time, and you're looking to ratchet things up and bed down and ratchet up every single step of the way.
And I think the other part of it is even from a psychological point of view, not just the habit formation thing, but also if we think about, and we've said this before, what people, one of the main things that people get from working with us or doing their retirement planning as a proactive thing is, to some degree, the most valuable thing they get is peace of mind that they are doing everything they can. So one of the advantages of a strategy like this, where you start very small, is you're sort of giving yourself permission to go, I'm just going to do what I can, and that's okay. And wherever I end up in 10 or 15 years' time, I don't then have to feel guilty or feel bad about the fact that, well, maybe I should have done this or I should have done this differently. You go, okay, well, we're doing what we can right now. And as you say, what we can do every year changes, and that's a dynamic thing. And so if every year you're just looking at that going, we're just going to do what we can in a way that doesn't impinge on our lifestyle too much, and at the end of every year we can sleep easy knowing that, right, well, we did what we could for this year. Next year's a new year, and it's a new situation, and it's like you say, all of our situation has changed completely. Let's adjust based on that, but you're not looking backwards, and we see that where people that sort of come in and feel like they've wasted the last 5 or 10 years, and it's sort of something that you're often talking to people about, the psychology of, look, that's been and gone. There's nothing you can do about that, but it is sometimes hard to put behind you. Whereas if you start small, start earlier, you don't have that. Wherever you end up is the best place that you could have possibly ended up, and wherever that is just, it has to be okay.
That's all I had to add today.
That's it. Great topic, the one percenters, mate. That's what we're all about. Every football coach I've ever had since the beginning of time has talked about the one percenters, and I think that's what we like to talk about with our clients as well.
Oh, the 1% that may make a difference to bring our podcast out to more and more listeners, which we want to happen because we love doing the Money Over 50 podcast. Hopefully, if you're listening still at this stage, you love it as well. If you haven't already filled up those 5 empty stars on the Apple iTunes feedback little, I don't even know what to call it. What is it?
Like a
feedback
review,
area, a review area.
Yeah. Hit 5 stars.
5 stars will do. If you could hit 5 stars, fill up those 5 empty stars and leave a review for us that way, that would be much greatly appreciated to help get the Money Over 50 podcast out to more listeners. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.